Welcome back to the Neighbors Podcast. I'm your host, Allie Parsons, and today is such a powerful conversation. I got to sit down with our good friend, Jeramiah Bowles, and he has one of the most powerful testimonies that I have truly ever heard. I mean, a childhood wrought with hardships and hard things, and God continuing to show up amidst all the hard stuff. And he stands here today, a light and a person that just radiates joy and can't stop telling everybody he knows about Jesus because of what he's been through. And to hear him unpack his childhood, unpack the things that he went through with his parents, who God has redeemed their stories, they love the Lord. And so to bring it all full circle, to break generational sin and to see where he's at now and how he's living his life is such an encouragement, a challenge to me. I mean, he had me snot crying multiple times in this conversation. And so get your tissues ready because I'm sure it'll be the same for you. I can't wait for you to hear this conversation. You will be inspired, you will be changed, and you will be more and more grateful at the end of it for knowing Jesus and for the little things in life. Before we get into it, I just want to thank our sponsors for making this episode possible. This episode is brought to you by Grounds of Grace. The next time you're looking for a great cup of coffee with a great local cause attached to it, make sure to check out Grounds of Grace Coffee Company here in Jacksonville. Grounds of Grace Coffee Company is the for-profit to their nonprofit sponsored by Grace, which has been serving in the Jacksonville murder capital 32209 for the past 6 years, fighting for the gospel to be delivered into some of the hardest communities in our city. Grounds of Grace is widely known for their popular lattes, shaken espressos, fun seasonal drinks, and their iced plant-based refreshers. Check them out on Instagram at Grounds of Grace Jacks or at one of their 5 locations in Jacksonville. This episode is also sponsored by Lay Construction. Lay Construction is a full-service general contractor specializing in commercial interiors. Whether your project is office, retail, hospitality, faith-based, or industrial, Lay Construction services all market types. The company is Jacksonville-based and dedicated to serving Northeast Florida by delivering the highest quality work in the industry. For any of your construction needs, Lay Construction is your team. Check out some of their completed projects on Instagram at Lay, that's LAY, _construction, or online at lay-construction.com. And one final plug is for our Neighbors merch. You can go to our website, theneighborspodcast.com. We have a couple tees left. Some are sold out. So if you have been thinking about wanting one, go and get some. And we're excited to start planning our summer drop of merch. And then we also have the Daughter Study on there, which is a 21-day Bible study working through who we are as descendants of Eve, and then battling how do we dissolve the labels that we believe about ourselves and walk into a gospel confident life. So grab your copy of that, do it in a group or do it on your own, but grab yourself one of those. All right, here is my episode with Jeramiah. Okay, Jeramiah, welcome to the Neighbors Podcast.
Hi.
Hi. This is really fun because we're friends in normal life, and now you're on the podcast, and your wife is sitting right where I can see her. Your wife named Steph. We just had a conversation how we can't refer to her as your wife. We need to give her a name because we know her name. You all have been in our life for a lot of years. Steph was our wedding photographer, which is really fun. And then I basically stalked her to become friends with her. And she was very single at the time and really had been through some relationships and was just really seeking, like, she just wanted a man after God's heart. And I'll never forget when she called and said, remember that guy who's a surfer and has dreads? And I was like, Jeramiah? And she's like, we went on a date for like 12 hours, right? Wasn't your first date a whole day?
Yeah, I think it was longer than that. I think
most
it was
aggressive
like
first
16
date ever.
hours. From
16.
5, like it was from 5 a.m. because we ended up going surfing in Ponte Vedra till like 11 o'clock at night or 12 o'clock at night.
Wild.
It was a long time.
Yeah, and I feel like y'all knew right away that you were meant to be together.
Pretty
and you've been married how long now?
3 years in February.
3 years. And so it's been so fun to watch you get into your marriage and different seasons and all the things. So I'm really excited that you're here. And before we get into your story and who you are, give us your hot take. Now, I have to say, you are kind of like the emperor of hot takes. And even before we started recording, Wes said out of everybody we've asked what your hot takes are, he was most excited to hear yours. And then we talked about how you have a lot of really serious hot takes that we're not going to cover
Yeah, right.
in this time and space, but you'd be happy to converse with anyone who wants to talk about your other hot takes about life. Okay, so give us what's an opinion you hold that would be widely viewed as an unpopular opinion?
So it took a lot of thinking, seeking, searching to come to this one. I didn't want to be too serious, but this is very serious in my life. I think sauce belongs on every type of food, literally everything.
Oh, wow.
And I mean, that's pretty much it.
Wait,
I don't think
what kind of sauce?
Literally every sauce for every food. Like, I think you could put sriracha mayo on pizza. You could put sriracha mayo on spaghetti.
Oh, we love sriracha mayo.
You could put it on anything. I think.
Do you put it on everything?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Wait, you put siracha mayo on spaghetti?
I'll put it on anything, absolutely.
Well, that might also be your serial killer trait, which is my next question.
One of the probably grosser things that I will do is I love ranch on like a carne asada burrito. So like,
okay,
yeah.
I could kind of see that actually. It had to take me a minute to think about what that is. Okay, so what are like your? Okay, are we talking condiments? Because spaghetti technically already has sauce.
Right. And it's never saucy enough. Honestly, that's probably one of the biggest points of tension in our marriage is that Stephanie will go all out and cook this dinner. And
you're dousing
I will literally put sauce all over it. And she's like, why did you just do that? And I'm like, because I like sauce. And she knows this. We're like 3 years deep into marriage, so it's not a new thing to her.
So you just need your foods to be like and saucy.
Yeah, that sounds kind of weird, but yes.
The title of this episode is going to be Wet and Saucy. It'll be so clickbait. Like, people will definitely listen.
Yeah.
Okay, that's definitely a hot take. And just like a really like deep love for condiments.
Yes. So my friends used to call me the Sauce King in school because every time we had whatever lunch was, I would just grab any sauce and dump it all over.
Do you like ketchup?
Love ketchup. Every sauce.
Okay, but is there a condiment you don't like?
Horseradish, if you call that a condiment.
So niche. Yeah.
I hate horseradish.
Okay.
Horseradish and mushrooms are the only foods I pretty much won't eat.
Now, so you like mustards?
Love mustard. Yeah.
Wow.
All types of
I feel like you don't meet a lot of people who like mayo, mustard, and
I love
ketchup.
It all. Yeah.
That's fascinating. Relish? A pickle relish?
Love relish, yeah. Especially on a hot dog. It's the best.
I do love a relish on a hot dog.
Yeah.
I actually love a hot dog.
Yeah, same.
Like, I feel like that's kind of a hot take because hot dogs get a bad rap, but if you get a good quality hot dog, I mean, truly, what is better?
Yeah. And I really don't care what's in it. Like, hot dogs are amazing, yeah.
You'll eat just like the carnival hot dog.
Yeah. I mean, like, people freak out about whatever pig's feet, hooves, whatever they grind up in hot dogs, but it's like, dude, it's all animals. Just eat it.
Yeah, I'm not trying to eat hooves, but I draw the line at hooves. Do you eat any condiment on eggs?
Yeah, literally same thing. Like sriracha mayo, I'll put
sriracha mayo on eggs?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. Literally, I don't think there's a single food that you can't put sauce on.
Do you have taste buds?
Yes.
And they just accept a multi-flavor profile.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
What happens if you go to a restaurant?
Same thing. Unless we're at a restaurant with Steph's parents, because then her dad scolds me, and I feel like he gets so mad if I'm at their house. Like, they don't have ranch, they don't have mayo. Her dad hates white condiments, and I feel like those are all my favorites. So if we go out to eat with her parents, no. Like,
You're restraining.
Just to make her dad happy. He's also a king of hot takes.
But he is, and last night I saw him at church, and I was telling him you were coming on the podcast, and your mother-in-law was there too, Steph's mom, and she was telling him about hot takes, and he was like, I don't get it. What is a hot take? And I said, actually, I feel like, Mr. Keeler, you have more hot takes than anybody.
Right.
And he started laughing. And I said, you actually just are one big hot take.
Right.
Which is funny that Steph ended up with you, who you also have a lot of hot takes.
Yes.
They always say you typically end up with someone like your dad.
Right.
Or someone totally opposite. And so here we are.
Yeah.
Okay, so then what would you say is this is another question I love asking people, what is your serial killer trait? Let me give some examples, because everyone's like, serial killer trait?
Right.
I don't actually think anybody's a serial killer that I know, hopefully. This is like if you always have 150 tabs open on your laptop, or my serial killer trait is that I have a low compassion for animals
Yeah.
and we're not like a big pet person,
Same.
that kind of stuff. So what would you say is your serial killer trait?
We thought through a couple of those as well. One of them is I have slept on the floor or the equivalent to the floor
Yeah,
for
that's a good one.
probably 8 years. And then,
Wait, and let's be clear. You had a bed to sleep in.
oh yes,
You
yeah,
slept on the floor next to the bed
yes, intentionally.
intentionally.
There's a whole long story behind that. Long story short, it's back pain. I woke up one night in bed, rolled over, laid on the floor, and then woke up without back pain. And I was like, wow, this is the cure. And then every time I slept in the bed, I had back pain. So I was like, I'm just going to sleep on the floor. And it's been 8 years. So,
So primitive of you.
yeah, and it fits my looks, I feel like. And then
It
my
absolutely
other
is.
hot take, what was it? I can't, or my, not hot take, but
Your serial killer
serial
trait?
killer. I can't even remember right now.
Okay, well, if you think
But
of it, we can come back
I
to
think
it.
sleeping on the floor is
The
pretty.
sleeping on the floor is a really good one.
Yeah.
Because, yeah, I remember when you all were engaged and
Yeah.
you were like, you had to solve the problem of, like, what do we sleep in? Which
Right.
isn't really, yeah, your dreads just
Sorry.
hit the, our lantern. That's not a typical problem to solve for most engaged couples.
Yeah.
Because most everybody sleeps in beds.
Right. So our compromise was basically we had to buy a Japanese style mattress called a shikibutan, and so it's basically an inch thick of wool. And Stephanie loves it now. I mean,
does.
she can't sleep in any other bed, so it worked out.
Now, will your kids one day sleep in a shiki butan?
Oh yeah, good question.
I don't think they make crib shiki butans.
We'll see what they end up doing. I don't know if I'm gonna have a say in that. So,
Yeah, that's true.
yeah.
Okay, so when we'll get into it, but when you're not doing like your 1,000 projects, you always got your hand in something. We got businesses, we got all these things going, partnerships. What are you doing for fun?
Sauna. I sauna
For
a lot
fun?
for fun, seriously, with like Casey and Luke and all of our friends. Surfing. Steph and I surf a ton. That's something we share in common. So we're always surfing. Pickleball.
That one is surprising for you. You know,
Yeah.
sauna, yeah, that's you. Surfing, that's you. When you
Right.
started getting into pickleball, that doesn't totally fit like
Yeah.
your aura.
No, I've never been a ball sports guy, so
Ball sports.
never. So when I got into pickleball, it kind of shocked me too.
But you're really into it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's fun.
It is really fun.
I'd say we play at least once a week. Probably more like a couple times a week though. But her parents are super into it. They have a court in their neighborhood, so we play there.
It's so fun to play with people.
Yeah, it is fun. And then another thing we do for fun is just hanging out with friends. Like, I mean, you're part of our friend group, so just all of our friends. We're obsessed with. Steph and I are literally out probably 5 days a week hanging out with somebody. So
The two of you are the most community-centric people I've ever met.
yeah,
Which is funny. I feel like usually those two people don't end up together always, which makes you really like quite a force together because you have such a heart. Both of you have such a heart for people and community, and you love your community so well. You show up for them. You are so good at expanding your community. You're always bringing new friends into the fold. You've never met a stranger. Last time Steph and I hung out, I said there are two types of people that go on vacation. There are the people that make friends with people on vacation, and there are the people that don't. And we are not. And even though I'm 100% extroverted, when I'm on
Yeah.
vacation, I do not want to make friends with strangers on
Right.
vacation.
Yeah.
And Steph was saying how anytime you guys go on vacation, you are making friends with people from around the world, and then you're
Always.
just on vacation with these new friends.
Yeah, literally. Yeah, we just went to Costa Rica, or not, was it Costa Rica? No, it's El Salvador last year. And we met this couple, Ollie and his fiance, and we literally went on so many excursions with them. We're surfing everywhere,
That's
doing
seriously
all
my
this stuff.
nightmare.
Like, yeah, it's fun.
But
I
I
love
love
doing
that
that.
you guys are wired like that.
Yeah.
Okay, so tell us about your childhood, how you grew up, and kind of like a bit of your story.
Yeah. How much time do we have?
Yeah, I know, right?
So,
The highlights.
Yeah. So I'll just dive right into it, I guess. From birth, like, started off pretty turbulent. I spoke with my mom kind of a little bit before this, just to kind of lay out some stuff, and like we talked about before, just sharing stuff to honor her and what we've been through. But right off the bat, like, my mom and my dad, they met basically through a friend who they were both doing drugs with, and my mom ended up basically becoming somewhat of a like dealer for drugs to my dad. She had a connection, and she wasn't like selling drugs to my dad, but she basically had a connection in California with a meth dealer that she would get drugs from. She'd go back to this house. My dad would be there. Boom, they would make a connection. She'd give him drugs, whatever. And she said at first she wasn't into my dad the way she could tell that he was into her. So she said that led to her basically, fast forward, I don't know, like a year or two, she ends up getting locked up for selling to an officer 6 times. And through that, she developed a relationship with my dad. So then he was head over heels in love with her. And basically, he called on his parents for help, ended up bailing my mom out of jail. And that led to then she got pregnant with me while she was still on meth. So now my mom's pregnant on meth with my dad. And thank God, obviously, she ended up having me, and I'm still here. I didn't think I'd get emotional this early on. But basically, that then led to my mom wanting to just figure out how to get her life together. Because prior to that, she had 3 girls, 3 sisters of mine that she had taken away to drugs. And she just basically was like, I need to figure this out. Like, this can't continue to be my life. So her and my dad were plugged into this church, of all things, and ended up meeting this couple who became basically my foster parents. They went to church one day and told the pastor what they were going through, and the pastor ended up announcing on stage that the whole what they're going through. And this couple stood up, and it happened to be that couple they met. And the wife was like, "We want to take your son in. We want to take your son in. Like, we'll watch him while you guys go to rehab, while you guys just get your life together, figure it out." So then that led to, man, a whole journey of where I'm at now. I called them Uncle Johnny and Aunt Danella, and they basically became my foster parents. And while my mom was in rehab, she would come visit. And this was totally like not, there was no government involved. It was literally a couple at church that was like, "We'll just take you in."
Which is actually very beautiful.
Yes,
like that is the outworking of the church.
It is, and it's like there didn't have to be there was no intervention from anybody. This was literally my parents going into a church asking for help, and this couple stepped up like they should. And it was awesome. So obviously early on then I was raised in the church, and I don't really have a lot of memories from, it's weird because I do and I don't. I don't have a lot of memories of church, but I do have a lot of memories of being raised in that home. So my mom goes to rehab for about 2 years, and she's visiting throughout these 2 years and gets to build a relationship with them. Ends up getting out of rehab and takes me back and then marries my biological father. Shortly after, he relapses and goes to prison. Then that leads my mom to, and this is kind of funny, we were talking about this today, how my mom developed a relationship. This couple, they were a little older. My Uncle Johnny, I called him, was about 60 years old, I believe, when they took me in. And they had a 30-year-old son that my mom developed a relationship with. So he, I guess, in literal terms, was my my foster brother. And my mom ends up marrying him. They built a relationship, started dating, ends up marrying him. He becomes my stepdad now. And now this family that was taking care of me becomes my family, like real family. And man, there's just like so many details in between that I'll we'll save for another day.
Yeah.
But basically, we were pretty, I guess, poor. Like, we had no money, had nothing. We stayed in some long stay hotels that the church would help fund and pay for. I remember one of my treats as a kid was my mom would get a, what are those from McDonald's? Hash brown from McDonald's, and that was like a big treat for me. And through like all of that, my stepdad, his name's Johnny, my stepdad, who I call dad. I mean, he raised me since I was 2 or 3 years old. But dad, basically, he worked so hard, worked for a company everybody knows, Comcast, Xfinity. Fast forward, ended up working his way up to a supervisor of basically a sales team on the West Coast. We ended up moving into an apartment, and then a few years after that, ended up buying a house. And then I just remember, and this is how I remember it as a kid, is he would come home, and you could kind of tell he was stressed out. And then that stress, I remember then he started coming home and just staying on the porch when he got home and noticing like he would drink a beer or two. And then that led to, I mean, fast forward again, he just was like coming home and getting plastered every single night. Every single night he'd be drinking and drinking and drinking. And then that led to him, you know, drinking through the day and like just really struggling with, I mean, just really struggling with alcoholism. And through that, he ended up leading my mom down that road too. So now here I am. This was probably when I'm like 8, 9, 10 years old. My mom's a full-blown alcoholic. Dad's a full-blown alcoholic. Biological dad's in and out of my life, in prison, on drugs, on the streets, homeless. So he was always a part of my life. Got to visit him literally whenever my mom would run into him on the street. She'd come home, pick me up, and we'd go see him. But so here I am, young kid, 3 parents who just are very dysfunctional, obviously struggling with their own demons and substance abuse. And man, like I kind of thought it was normal. Like
Sure, yeah.
a lot. I mean, Fresno, if for those of you who don't know, just Fresno is such a at one time it was the meth capital of the world.
Oh, wow.
There's not a lot to do there other than drugs. So just I grew up with kids doing drugs in literally elementary school, middle school, high school. I was around it all the time. So that just, man, it was hard. It was really hard. One of the things I turned to was wrestling. I started wrestling when I was in like 2nd or 3rd grade and found out I was really good from the get-go. So then I realized, man, like the more I pour myself into this, the less I have to be home, the more I get to go on the road to tournaments, the more praise I get. It was so fun, like winning all these medals, doing all this stuff, and getting recognition from coaches at other schools trying to recruit me and this and that. It was like a whole thing. Mm-hmm. So I wrestled throughout all my life, up until high school. And then I also pursued BMX. I started picking up sponsors through that. I rode street BMX. It's basically what you see, like guys grinding rails, doing like spin tricks and different things. So picked up a couple sponsors doing that, like a local bike shop and a helmet company. And I was like, man, like when I pour myself into these things, I start to get stuff out of them. And I don't have to spend as much time at home now because I got to ride and get clips. I have to wrestle and perform for my coaches. So they took care of me. And then when I was at home, I struggled really bad with the video game addiction because I just wanted to stay in my room and stay away from the fighting, the alcoholism, all that stuff that came with, I mean, just addiction. So, yeah. And then when it's kind of crazy, but then fast forward to my sophomore year in high school, I'm feeling pretty good about myself, feeling at the top of the world. Wrestling's going really well. BMX is going extremely well. And then I get diagnosed with cancer. And sorry.
Okay.
Clearly there's still some stuff there that I'm working through, but I remember being diagnosed at the time and just asking like why. Um, Going through the things I went through as a kid, and then having to go through that, BMX, wrestling, friendship, all this stuff was just stripped away, literally overnight. And it was the weirdest thing ever because I remember we just got done riding an event at a local bike shop, and I had this back pain. I didn't have like these crazy symptoms leading up to it, at least that you would have thought led to cancer. Basically, we just got done riding this event at a local bike shop, and I had this excruciating back pain, like so bad. Like I had to call my mom. Like we rode there. I had to call my mom to come pick me up, and my friends literally just basically carried me and put me in the car. And we got home, and then my mom ends up going on this trip to New York to visit my sister Brianna. And my stepdad, obviously, again, is full-blown in alcoholism. So on the trip to New York, I was in my bedroom, and my stepdad never once, and this, anyways, I never got checked on. So I was just bedridden, sick, couldn't get out of bed, couldn't do anything. Mind you, leading up to this for probably 2 or 3 years, every morning I'd wake up, I'd have some sort of sickness, and I'd basically call out of school. I had literally 3-4 doctors tell my mom I was faking it, the sickness, because then by around noontime, I'd be warmed up enough to go ride and do my stuff. So if there's 300 days in a school year, I'd probably go, I'd probably missed 100 something of them.
Wow.
So that all led up to this moment when my mom gets back from this trip, and she takes one look at me and she's like, "Oh my gosh, something's wrong with you." I dropped a bunch of weight. I was having just weird little, I'd brush my teeth and spit up a bunch of blood. My thighs, I would have these, it was weird. It's I don't know what you call it, but little things would almost like pimples would burst on my thighs, and I would just bleed and bleed and bleed and bleed. And I none of this stuff added up until my mom got home, and she rushed me to the hospital right away. We get there, the doctor says, come back in 2 weeks. I think he just has a virus. And my mom's like, "This boy does not have a virus. There's something going on with him." So she's like, "You need to do something." So he's like, "Okay, we'll just run some blood tests." 2 days later, he calls my mom and says, basically "Hey, make sure he doesn't fall, cut himself or anything. His blood's a little off. If he basically gets a cut, he could bleed out. You need to rush him to Valley Children's Hospital." So my mom takes off work, comes, gets me from school. I was at school when she got that call. And within, we got to the hospital, and within 20 minutes, well, actually, let me backtrack a little bit. On the drive there, I verbally said to my mom, when they diagnosed me with cancer, "I need you to leave the room." I just knew. I just knew it was cancer. Whether that was the Holy Spirit or what, I just knew. So get to the hospital. Sure enough, within 20 minutes, they diagnosed me with AML leukemia. Right off the bat, they were just like, "He's so weak, we don't know if he's going to make it." They said I probably had gone 3 years, 2 or 3 years, with having it before being diagnosed. Jeez. So the way leukemia is measured is in percentages instead of stages. And my blood was 75% cancer is being produced in my bone marrow, and it had spread through my spine. So yeah, and that basically led to a whole nother journey. So yeah. In itself.
Yeah. I mean, that's a lot.
Yeah.
And, of course, you get emotional, and rightly so, right? These are more things that have happened to a kid than happened to most kids. And
Mm-hmm.
there's so much in your story that is evidence of a broken world. And, you know, your mom was doing the best she could with what she knew. And addiction is a fight. And um, being born into that environment and the things that you had to face are just exponentially harder than what most kids go through. And so when emotion comes up, I guess I just want to give you some permission of that makes sense, that your heart still breaks for that little boy and the things that he was robbed of
Mm-hmm.
and the things he didn't get to experience. And while God has redeemed so much of your story that I get to see firsthand and that we're going to talk about, it doesn't mean that those things, you can't still lament the things that you lost.
Right.
It doesn't mean that there's still open wounds plaguing you every day. Maybe some of it is that you have to work through, but it's just evidence of scars that you have that still make you human. And so I think it's the way you tell your story is beautiful because you don't shy away from the hard things and the emotion of it. And yet, if anybody knows you and what we'll get into, like you are a walking testimony because of the things that you've been through. You can't stop telling people about Jesus. And would that be the case had you not been through the things that you've been through? I don't know,
Right.
maybe. But while they're so hard, like they really did shape you into who you are. And God is using those experiences and that face to face with death, really, like not thinking that you're going to survive it, to now use you like you're just such an open vessel to carry the good news around, which is so cool.
Thank you.
So let's talk about that. When in the course of that, like when did you really meet Jesus? When did your faith become real to you
Right.
in your life?
Yeah. So, like I mentioned, the parents who fostered me went to a church in Fresno, and I think that was the start of it. I mean, I really do. When I truly had an encounter with Christ was through cancer. I was in the hospital for 6 months straight, and I had a week break in between each round of chemo, but every single time there was a complication, and it was just brutal. Like I go back now. It's been a couple years since I've been back, but I remember, excuse me, I'd go back every year for a checkup, and I would purposefully, intentionally take my mom with me, so because people don't recognize me. I was bald. I was skin and bones, like 140 pounds. So people don't recognize me when I walk in. So when I bring my mom, people look at her and they're like, double take, just like, what?
Wow.
Like, is that Jeremiah? So I literally, it's just a testament to God, but I'd walk in and for my checkups and nurses just break down crying, like literally telling me, we have never seen somebody as sick as you make it out. Like,
Wow.
we were literally planning like your death. Like, we thought you were going to die. So the fact that you're here, like, it was amazing. So, basically through the experience in the hospital, I had so many complications come up. Shingles, staph infection. I had blood infections that came up from a low immune system, like, and then infections that I can't talk about that were just really bad stuff.
Yeah.
And I remember feeling, and this was a lot of the stuff, it's funny because a lot of stuff happened within the first like month or two. A lot of the major stuff, I have seizures, like fainting, passing out, all this stuff. And then I remember it was probably about a month or two in to my stay. It was one of the first nights I was alone. My parents struggled with addiction. They did not struggle with loving me in their sobriety. Man, and I'll get into that later, but so I had somebody with me literally every single night of this entire thing. And whether it was my stepdad, my biological dad was in a program and they let him come and visit, and he would stay with me some nights, and then my stepdad and aunt and all these people. And this was probably the only night I was alone. I think it was probably because I was alone. I was having thoughts of suicide. No clue how I was going to do it in the hospital, but I remember thinking through it. I really was. I was like, okay, like, Can I take my IV and blah, 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 just the stupidest stuff. And I remember maybe a few days prior, a chaplain had come in and just talked about Jesus. And I didn't think twice about the conversation, but I think God might have used that to plant a seed in me, because I remember thinking that night, going through these thoughts, and then I just had a thought like, and whether this is right or not, this is what I experienced as a kid. I remember always thinking like, God has big plans for you. And my relationship with Christ wasn't always there, but I just remember always thinking, God has big plans for you. God has big plans for you. And then I'm at this moment by myself, and I remember thinking like, man, God has big plans for you. And, going through this stuff, thinking up until that point, thinking I was going to die, every morning I'd wake up and just be like, what the heck? Like, I'm still here. This is crazy. That during that night was the night I gave my life to Christ. Wow. And, I know now you shouldn't do this, but I did that in a moment. I did this in a moment. I basically said, God, if you are who you say you are and you do what you say you do, God, please deliver me from this, and I'll share this, to everybody. Share this with everybody. So here I am. I prayed that prayer, and end up leaving the hospital, fast forward, end up obviously beating cancer. And it still took a couple years for me to get on track. And this was all in California, mind you. So the story that led me to Florida is a whole nother story in itself. But
isn't it crazy how God uses like the darkest nights of our soul to change us? It's almost like we are such selfish glory hounds that if he did it while we're feeling like we have it all together, we would begin to give ourselves credit. I've talked about it on here, but literally the darkest season of my life, which was wrought with loneliness and depression, is where like my faith became real and where I experienced freedom for the first time. And I used to resent that season so much. And in the past couple years, and I think it's just part of like the healing journey. Now, when I talk about that season, I talk about it with so much joy, because that is the thing that God used to set me on fire for him and to put a mission in my heart that I didn't want anybody else to live in the bondage for the rest of their life. Like, that was the moment I knew I wanted to help people experience freedom in Jesus. And it sounds like the same thing happened to you, like in the darkest night of your soul, that for all intents and purposes for the rest of your life you would live to regret. You actually might not, because that is where God met you and said, nope, like I actually have an assignment for you, and this is the starting blocks, not the finish line.
Yeah, it was crazy. I remember, so after that day, I just felt it in my soul that I was not going to die after that. Like,
which up until that point, you thought you were.
Oh, every night, every day. I was so stressed out. I'm like, God, like I'm still a virgin. I want to get back to riding my bike. I want to do all this stuff. Like,
oh my gosh, that's incredible.
Yeah, I was 16, 17 years old. And there was just so much life to live that I hadn't lived yet.
Yeah.
So after that point, I was just like so fired up. I remember my mom has it on recording, me saying that I feel like the happiest person on earth.
Wow.
And I'm over here, skin and bones, skeleton, kid dying of cancer. Like, I looked horrible. And I'm over here just praising the Lord. Like, God is so good. I'm so happy. I was praying for kids in the hospital. I was, it just lit this fire. Like, that night just lit this fire in me that still hasn't been put out. So
that's right,
it's
yeah.
like,
okay, so From there, which I mean, a whole nother part of your story is you weren't able to actually graduate high school then. You have now, right?
No.
Oh, you still have it?
No GED,
Oh,
nothing.
I thought you did. Okay.
I
Oh,
should.
no, that's a fun fact
I
about you.
should.
No, you can't because that's a fun fact.
Right.
You weren't able to graduate high school. And then, so give us then, like, when did the healing start to happen, and what did your healing journey, which of course, like, we're always on a healing journey,
Right.
not that everything's tied up in
Right.
a bow now, but you are many years removed from that. And so what did that healing journey look like?
Yeah, many years removed. This September, it'll be 10 years cancer-free.
Wow. We need to throw a party.
Yeah, it's crazy. I'm so grateful. So I was talking to Steph about this, actually. I've never been to counseling. It's probably should, but a lot of stuff I got to work through. But honestly, it's so serious. It's going to sound maybe cheesy, but I remember just being a complainer and complaining a lot about everything. I remember I got money for having cancer. It was nothing crazy. They paid me. I got disability. It was like $600 a month or something.
Yeah.
And I remember saving up, buying a car. And I remember one day I was driving and I just had all this road rage post-cancer. And I remember being so frustrated and mad at like people cutting me off and all this stuff. And I just had a horrible week. And I remember complaining and complaining and complaining. And one day it just clicked. And I was like, you know what? I'm done complaining. I'm just going to take life for what it is, whatever comes at me. I'm just going to take it and try to be joyful about it. And basically that led me to, I remember I had a year of gratitude, I called it. And I remember whether I was sitting in traffic, whether Chipotle got my order wrong, anything, I would just be like, okay, what joy can I find in this moment? And it would be as simple as I'm sitting in traffic with a car and I'm like, okay, I have a car. Praise God, I have a car. Just be drinking water and just be like, praise God, I have water, like coming out of this faucet. And that honestly, the Lord worked through that and used that to, I guess, heal me.
Yeah.
Gratitude has been the biggest thing in my life. If I'm going through hard times, just finding there's always something to be grateful for. Always. Literally always. I was a kid dying of cancer in the hospital, and I found things to be grateful for. And people say, like, at least you don't have cancer. Like, people use that as a low point in somebody's life. And I'm like, dude, I did have cancer, and I was grateful. Like, you can be grateful in any situation. Like I said, never been to counseling. Probably should go. There's still like you said earlier, there's still so much healing to be had and to be done. But I think gratitude has been one of the biggest things for me. Gratitude, people talking through it. This right here, I have conversations like this all the time, like daily. And this is so healing for me to talk to people about my story and just what God's done through it. And, but yeah, I think gratitude.
He's redeemed so much in your story. What are some of the things that you feel like just generationally, like you have broken, and that as many generations come after you, what are the things that you're praying are broken over them too?
Yeah. So contrary to my looks and what people believe about me, I get so stereotyped having my hair and being a surfer and driving a big van.
You normally don't have shoes on.
Yeah, shirtless all the time.
Yeah.
One of our friend's kids actually today, he unbuttoned his shirt and he said, "I want to look like Uncle Maya. I don't want to. I don't want to have my shirt buttoned." So this is not typical.
I know that. Thank you for putting clothes on.
Yeah, you're welcome. But honestly, seriously, contrary to how I look, like, people stereotype me all the time. I've never done drugs. I smoked weed one time and ended up in the hospital for it. I was on heart medication, on a bunch of different stuff. It just, So first and last time, but never done drugs. The lineage, like, so serious. I don't think I can name a single person in my family that hasn't gone through some sort of drug addiction, whether it be alcohol, whether it be like hard drugs like heroin, meth, anything, you know. I'm one of the few. I have a couple sisters, praise God, who have not struggled with hard drugs. So drug addiction is a big one.
Yeah.
Seriously, that's a huge one, because I mean, that ran with, you know, my step side of the family as well, like all struggled with drugs, just huge. Another one that I feel hopefully sustainable is poverty, really, and learning, and not necessarily poverty, but just managing money the way the Lord wants you to. My mom and dad, biological dad, and even stepdad, are very generous people, praise God. They've never struggled with generosity. But one thing that I have learned now, you know, running my businesses, doing the stuff I do now, is just managing money in a God-honoring way. Not only with tithing, but with, you know, counting your money before you purchase something, knowing that you're just stewarding it well. Because there's ways to, I mean, like staying out of debt. So that's another one, is poverty, just managing money. I feel like so many of my family members struggle with that.
Yeah.
I'd say those are the two big ones, though, is addiction and money problems.
Yeah. Amen. So. Okay, so we've hinted at it a couple times, but here you are. You've got no high school degree. You, at one point, you were going to live in a van. This is now before Steph. Of course, you fell madly in love with Steph, and it changed everything about your life. But you were going to live in this van and travel around. Yeah, you would commonly be seen without shoes. I mean, you still are. And you were surfing and all the things. Now you're a business owner. You're a homeowner. So, like, what was that journey of going from the childhood that you experienced, and then maybe learning about money, all the things, and then this like entrepreneurial spirit to start and launch businesses?
Yeah, great question. So when I try to think through things a lot. I try to have a lot of, I drive a lot. So a lot of the times I'll turn off podcasts, I'll turn off audiobooks, turn off everything, and just sit and be quiet and listen. And one of the things I enjoy doing during that time is just think about what God's done in my life and the position I'm in, whether it be business, whether it be marriage, anything, and trace back a time where that shift started to happen. So one of them was actually Wes. I don't know if he knows this or you, but Wes gave me a book called Garden City by John Mark Comer.
Amazing book.
I don't know how many years ago, 5-6 years ago.
I think in COVID maybe.
Yeah, and I read that book. And I remember coming back to Wes like 2 months later, and I was like, yo, bro, thanks for that book. I read it. And he was like, what? Like, you actually read that? And I was like, yeah, dude. Like, thanks for giving it to me. And I think, first, that changed my mindset as a Christian as a Christian in general, but as somebody who's, we're called to work for Christ. And we're called to, basically he talks about in that book, like 6 days a week, work your fingers to the freaking bone and glorify God with the work that you're doing, and Sabbath even harder on your day of rest. And I remember learning about that. I was washing windows for this company at the time. And I remember reading that book and just being so fired up to go to work and just to honor God with what I was doing. And then fast forward a couple years, that led me to working for this company called, it was a company where I built vans. And basically they hired me during COVID, and they took me on, trained me up in electrical work. So I started building these electrical systems for vans. And I remember going there to buy some parts for my van because I was trying to convert it and live out of it. And that ended up being a hard work environment to be in. I wasn't a big fan of the management, and like I said earlier, in my childhood, I remember God. I just remember always hearing this voice in my head, like, God has big plans for you. God has big plans for you. So being in that environment of having just people that were hard to work with, management turning down ideas that I've had that I knew would work. I'd be like, here's something we can do. It would get shut down. We'd pivot another direction. And then anyways, it was just like a hard environment to be in for me. Then that led me to being like, dude, you've been hearing this voice in your head. At the time I was probably 22, 23. Been hearing this voice in your head for 23 years. Like, you should try to do something about it. Like, do something about that voice, figure it out. Like, why do you keep hearing like God has big plans for you? God has big plans for you. So then my brother-in-law, Charlie, again, another book, probably the only 2 books I ever read in my life up until that point. Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Rob Kiyosaki. Really good book. And it talks about, assets versus liabilities, all this stuff. And I remember reading a concept in there, which isn't a concept, it's just truth. Like, you can make your money make you money. And I was like, wait, what? Like, you can make your money make you money? How do you do that? So then I threw on a podcast, started learning about business, and that led me to diving a little bit into real estate. Applied for this company, ended up it was like 1,500 people applied for the same position at this real estate company. I ended up getting the position, and it was like bottom end of the totem pole. Worked my way up within a couple months to project manager, flipped a bunch of houses with this company, and learned so much. Well, interest rates in a couple years ago ended up shooting up, and the company came to a standstill, and it was just like, holy crap, what are we going to do? So within literally a couple weeks, they let go of, I think it was like 45, 50 people overnight. Like, they called everybody in the room, let everybody go. And I was just like, all right, like, it's time for me to try something, So ended up, Stephanie and I were on a trip with some family in Baltimore for a wedding. And I remember just being like, I think I want to commit to a year of trying to do something on my own. That led me to I thought about pressure washing, and I was like, dude, I can buy a pressure washer, buy some business cards, go knock doors, all in for less than $1,000. So ended up doing that, and it worked really well. And then fast forward a year, like I had, seriously, God blessed us with more than we could have ever imagined. Probably 4 or 5xing my salary at the other company. And then that led to a relationship with Riley. And then we started a company called Dawn Patrol Home Services, where we do some small construction stuff. And then that led into me and Steph jumping into real estate on our own, buying some rentals and flipping houses. And man, God has just been, he's just provided, and it's been so hard. But like, yeah,
all of that is not without, a lot of just hand to the plow, hard work. Mm-hmm. But I mean, truly such a testimony of God placing seeds in your heart to go after the things he's put in front of you, for the glory of him, not the glory of you guys, but to steward well what God's given you in time, talent, and treasure, and then to be generous with that, and especially for legacy, like generations to come. So do you ever battle whispers from your past or your childhood? And if you do, how do you combat those?
Yeah. I don't know. I definitely do battle whispers from my childhood, and I don't think I battle whispers from my childhood though as much as you might think. Like, I think the worst times come out probably in Stephanie and I's like big arguments. Something will happen, and then we'll be like, okay, there's definitely still something there that I need to heal from. On a day-to-day basis, talking about my story, like me tearing up earlier, I more so tear up because I'm just so grateful of God delivering me from those things. And I'm not sad. Oh man, I wouldn't trade anything for the world. I am so grateful. It sounds weird, but I'm so grateful to have gone through what I went through. Because like you alluded to earlier, I don't think my relationship with the Lord would be the same.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be as relatable. I wouldn't be able to talk to people the way I can talk to somebody now about the things they're going through. There's just so much foundation and like a platform that was built on what I went through as a kid. When the whispers get loud and things get hard, like one of the things we're going through is infertility. And I mean, to be quite honest, Stephanie hasn't had the struggles that I've had. And praise God, she hasn't had to go through, she hasn't had a ton of really, really hard adversity in her life. So now going through infertility, this has been the hardest thing she's ever had to go through. And the good part about it is that when the whispers get loud during this time, I can encourage her by letting her know, like, baby, we've gone, like the things I've gone through with cancer, with parents who are addicted to things, with just the abuse and the all the things I've gone through. God has delivered me from that, and he hasn't stopped.
Yeah.
And it's like, why would he just all of a sudden stop now? You know?
Yep.
And that's where I always go back to is like, God, your promises are yes and amen. And God, you've provided up until this point. Like, why would I just stop believing that?
Yeah.
You know, and I get to encourage my wife through that, and Stephanie through that, and tell her, baby, like, God's not just going to stop, you know? So whether we can have a kid biologically or not, he's going to provide.
Yeah.
And I firmly believe in that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really good. A newer question that I'm including in episode or conversations, and so someone recently asked me this in a meeting, and it was so interesting. We went around the table and all answered this question, and I learned so much about everybody.
Sorry.
And the question was, how would you describe the season that you're in right now? So you alluded to it a little bit as y'all are walking through infertility, but how would you describe the season that you're walking through right now?
Yeah, that's a big question. It's a weird season. As you know, being one of Steph's like best friends, like we've been going through infertility. One of the things that we found was that she had endometriosis. We ended up having to get that diagnosed through a surgery that was very expensive. Something that we literally couldn't afford on our own. So we had a fundraiser, ended up raising money that helped a lot. We're still gonna figure out how to get the rest of it covered because it was a pretty hefty fee for this surgery. But through that, it's been a weird season, honestly. It's been a hard season. It's been a season of growth. It's been a season of maturing in our faith. It's been a season of, honestly, like gratitude again for I've been delivered from so much, and I don't think God's going to stop now. So it's been a season of relying on just God's truth, God's word, knowing that he's going to provide. Like he cares for animals, and what's an animal to him? Probably the same as it is for me and you. Like we don't have much empathy or sympathy for animals. It's like, so man, again, like what makes me think that he's not going to provide for me if he's providing for these animals?
Yeah.
Or for our home if he's not providing for these animals. So I don't have I wish I could sum it up in like one word or one phrase of the season that we're going through. But I know it's really challenging for Steph, and it's weird because I'm definitely affected by what we're going through with infertility, but she's asked me, how come you don't cry about it? And again, it keeps falling back on God's delivered us. God's delivered me. God's brought us to where we're at now. Like, why is he going to stop? And I have cried about what we're going through, but man, I don't know. I'm just, and maybe this is a sick way to think about it, but the things I went through as a kid, again, have like given me this platform to share Christ in the way I get to share Christ. And I think it's going to be the same with our story, with this infertility journey. And I know that God has already been using it. I can't tell you how many people that have reached out to Stephanie after the fundraiser, we had multiple people who we never thought would have come to church with us come to church because they're like, wait, this is your community? These people are blessing you guys like through this season. These people are willing to give their time, talent, and treasure to help you through this hard time. Like, how do we get that? You know, and it's like, it's Jesus, it's Christ, it's the body of Christ, you know? So there's already been so much fruit from what we've been going through. And yeah.
Last question. Majority of our listeners are women, and there's some statistic about it's like 75% of the books that men read are given to them by women in their lives. And so I'm going to kind of apply that statistic to this podcast. I think there's a lot of women listening who are going to give this conversation to the men in their life, whether it's a husband or a son or a brother, a dad, whatever it is. And so if you could have like one final encouragement for men who maybe they've been through some hard stuff, maybe they battle some lies or some shame or whatever it is, what would be your encouragement to the men listening?
I would say take action. Taking action has probably been one of the biggest things that has changed my life. When I surrendered my life to Christ, taking action looked like stepping into his word. When I started to build up a foundation of his word and his truth in my life, taking action looked like meeting with other Christians, or I mean, some of this stuff is all encompassing, right? Because you want to be in his word, you want to be in fellowship. So doing the things, I know, which by the way, I struggle with these things just as much as any other man, taking action, all this stuff. It's so hard. But one of the things I find that helps me through a hard time, as well as is the things I mentioned earlier, is reaching out to people who care. Talking through the things you're going through, quite literally, I mean, metaphorically or literally, if you're a man, having another man who's willing to slap you in the face and knock you out of whatever you're going through. Like I can't tell you how many men in my life I have that hold me accountable to what I say I'm going to do. I'm a part of this thing called Iron Forums. It's a business. It's almost like B&I, but for Christian men who are looking to get better in business and their marriage and everything. And having that group has been awesome because we sit down once a month and you get to talk to men who are going through similar things and who hold you accountable to your goals. I have my friend Casey's another guy. Like all last year we sat down every Wednesday, Thursday, and I would run him through what I was going through that week, good or bad. And I would say, here's the things I need you to hold me accountable to for this week. We're going to meet next week. If I don't accomplish them, there was monetary consequences to it. So then I literally would fork over money into a pot that like seriously, but that's how serious it is in my eyes. It's like, I am willing to like put stuff on the line to be held accountable, to be a better husband, to be, to maintain a relationship with Christ, to pursue business in a godly way. I think men need to be surrounded by other men who care about them.
I love that. Well, Jeremiah, thank you so much for being here, for sharing your heart and the hard stuff and the beautiful stuff and everything in between. And we're so grateful for you and Steph and excited for your future and all that God's going to do and how he's going to use you guys as he's already using you. So thanks so much for being here.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Thanks for listening. We'd love for you to join us in The Neighborhood, our Patreon community. It's a space for the good, the hard, and the hilarious. A place where real life happens. It's $5 a month or any additional amount you choose. You'll get a podcast episode once a week from Caitlin and I, plus additional videos, early access to events and merch, and more fun things we'll do along the way. So come join us by going to patreon.com/neighborspodcast and sign up. We'll see you in the neighborhood. And if you enjoy Neighbors, we'd love for you to leave us a 5-star review anywhere you listen to the podcast, or subscribe and give this video a thumbs up on YouTube. Sharing is the best way to help our conversations make it into more corners of life. To grab your favorite Neighbors merch or resources, you can head to our website, theneighborspodcast.com. Neighbors is produced by Logger Creative, audio by Taylor Minning, and music by Austin and Lindsay Adamak. See you next time.
days, new mercies every morning. You never shy away to tell me that you're for me. How could I repay this? Whatever can I do but offer up this life?